But then when we actually had to pay a fee for this, I thought, no way in hell is this going to happen. And interestingly enough, we did. There were 3 of them. And remember that young punk I told you about earlier? He came up with this great idea. It sounds wonderful. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this, but we're going to do it in even a better facility. We're going to rent a hotel room. We're going to have a conference. And instead of relying on the people that are in our community, we're actually going to open this up to actually have people fly in, because I know there are more people outside of Orlando, our area where we lived, that want this information, would like to be part of it, and could join us rather than relying on the small geographic location of a catchment pool of what we had available. I had other things going on in my life. I wasn't thinking that clearly. I also wasn't that committed to it. I had my own things to do. But what resonated with me was, you're out of your fucking mind. Are you shitting me? You're going to spend how much money of your personal savings to be able to put this sort of show on? And with the expectation our people are actually going to deliver. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know how he was going to do it. These are going to be 2 key things everyone looks at. I missed the most important thing involved. Here you have a 17-year-old teaching a 30-plus-year-old professional something about life and getting something done. He had purpose. And when you know your purpose, you'll figure out what and how. And what and how is less important than your purpose, your why of what you are doing. He had that. I didn't. In 2007, he puts on his first dog and pony show, the first 21 convention. And it was a success. It was an obvious success. We're here today. I was amazed. He continued it the next year, and we're like, rock on. He does it again, this time in 2010. Now, most people try to travel the world. I know I would have liked to have traveled more than I have. Okay, and that's just me buying an airline ticket and going someplace I want to see. What does he do? He decides to take this road show overseas. He goes to Europe and puts on 2 conferences in countries he's never been in, has limited connections, but he does something else. He just doesn't have a purpose. He utilizes global connections. It's going to be something I'll talk about in a bit, but he leverages those connections. Okay, the what and the how. He figures that out. And I can imagine the fear that's going through him. I know what I faced when I faced any number of my projects. We've talked at length on some of these others, and he shared that. But he took those fears and he ignored them. He paid attention, but he figured out a what and a how to actually respond to his fears. And he figured it out. Not only did he figure it out, he actually acted on it. I'm amazed, thoroughly perplexed, just stunned. And then you have to sit back and thoroughly recognize the individual and his achievements. They were profound. Anthony being Anthony, he was already kind of known being stubborn, bullheaded. You just sort of made room for him because you weren't going to resist it. I've talked about that, I think, in the documentary. 2012, he takes it global. Not just overseas, global. 3 separate continents, 1 year, 17 freaking time zones. Who the hell does that? Who does that? That still boggles my mind that he was able to achieve that. He has a purpose. And the purpose wasn't just putting on the conventions or the presentations or the 1 million+ hours of video content he's uploaded for free on YouTube. His purpose is self-education. His purpose is to develop a culture of men to help support him to better himself and better each and every one of us in a process. That is stunning. That is something our cultures collectively have let go of and we've lost. And here you have a very young man achieving that. Not old men. Not old men that are afraid. And I'm here to sit down and stand in front of you and tell you I would have been terrified by it and I would not have done what he's done. Take that lesson today into your hearts. You are in a special place. Capitalize on it. Find your purpose. Look then to solve the what and the how. As we go forward, I want to recognize that the 21 Convention has done a number of things. And the next 6 points are going to kind of keynote on some of these elements that the 21 Conventions does, either explicitly or inexplicitly. And the first and primary one, and something Anthony's leveraged very successfully, is we've won the history's lottery ticket. There is no better time to live than right freaking now. We have access to information, research, dialogue, communities, other people globally at our fingertips. The internet is an amazing device and tool to learn, to harvest information, to share, to put information out, and to get feedback and responses. The Gutenberg press was one of the most famous human inventions around. It is a device made for printing that had all the power of a tweet. And it launched a human revolution in thought, in ideas. It changed nations, it changed societies, and it changed our worldview. What we have before us is vastly more powerful. And you're leveraging it. All right? You need to be able to have a direction in your life. You need to know which way you're going. And you need to pursue that. That's going to be part of the connection. You have to have a degree of knowledge, self-awareness, and be willing to share that. And then you need to actually leverage your global connections. Right now, I don't think half of you know each other. It would be a shame if you lost out on that opportunity not to make the connection, especially in this economic era of service industries. All right? It's not enough just to get an education. You have to then have practical experience to compound that. That's going to take time. The other element which education systems do a pretty poor job at is developing transferable skills. Okay? The last thing that they absolutely don't do is actually make a global network of connections. If you're going to be successful in a global environment, you're going to need to be able to leverage the education, experience, and then you're going to have to leverage the ability to make the connections to make something function. Anthony did all those things when he went international and went global. The other element is education is a terribly personal responsibility. Our education systems are horrible. And if there's no greater testament to it than after 12 years of an American education, you're not worth anything more than minimum wage. As a matter of fact, we have to have a minimum wage to force employers to pay you that little. The reality is if your education was better than it was, and it was as good as they say it is, your employers would be competing to outbid you for you. They're not. They're not going to. Employers have no problem throwing money at resources they value. The average high school graduate isn't worth any more than what they get with minimum wage. And there's a reason for it.